Surprising absolutely no one, electricity is not cheap to generate in bulk. This here is the simplest way to measure how much power you're consuming. This is called the kilowatt. It can go by a couple of other names, but the idea behind this device, you can look at your line voltage, you can see the current draw of any device going through it, you can see the wattage of any device going through it, the power factor, the frequency of your line, usually that's between 50 or 60 hertz, and this button right here, kilowatt hours. When you have this plugged in, it'll keep a running tally on the watts consumed by any device that goes through it. Unfortunately, if you lose power or you unplug this, that running tally is lost. So that's why kilowatt hour meters exist. This is a considerably older unit right here. Made by Sangamo. I think it's from like the 1950s, the 1960s. Line goes in on this one here, 120 or 240 volts. There's a field winding. There's the actual load winding that goes through, and it comes out on a load on the other side. It is a beautiful mechanical device in that it is capable to do this with little energy consumed on its own. Otherwise, are you billing for it? Are you paying for the waste? Is the customer paying to have this installed? And it has these dials here which just simply show you exactly how many kilowatt hours you have consumed. So this style of mechanical meter has now gone out of production. Nobody makes them anymore. Or at least nobody that is a major electrical utility company still wants to use them. In its place, we have these. These are called smart meters. There is a lot of debate regarding whether or not smart meters are great devices. As you can see, they have done away with all of the mechanical parts, which makes them completely silent. They consume damn near no electricity. And as you can see, if I can get this last catch out of here, there we go. As you can see, there's nothing inside of them as well either. It's the same thing as before. You have your line and your load. You have these little tiny transformers here, which are just allowing it to see the wattage that's passing through it. And it just simply keeps a running tally in physical memory, not by the battery backup. The battery backup's only there so that when the meter has a power failure, this has a radio transmitter. Instead of having to have someone go from house to house to house, checking the meter and how much power has been used since the last time they were there, it just transmits it to a central receiver, which then knows this is the serial number installed at this location. This is how much power they've used in this metering period. Please bill them appropriately for that. Plus, it also includes tariffs, time. You get the idea. In some locations, actually, it even lets you see what exactly is going through this on your own. Other places are not so lucky. But all of these devices are post-payment devices. The idea is you get approved by an inspector to have a meter installed. The electric company will give you or loan out the meter, which is then installed on your property. And then every billing period, which could be somewhere between once a month to once every quarter, you'll receive a bill for how much power you've consumed since the last bill. There are situations where that usually can't be done. Here in North America, electricity is just simply so cheap that you really don't have to do that. Like, say you use a cabin for a weekend. Whatever, the cost of the electricity is just part of the bill. Or let's say you're in a hotel. Whatever, the cost of electricity is part of the bill. Even in a short-term rental, whatever, the cost of electricity is part of the bill, or the landlord just kind of divvies it up. And so, like, here's your flat rate. You're not going to be doing anything more than that. I love these here because this one here is actually attached to my vending machine outside, and that's what I use for metering how much power I've used on that. I have the mechanical version of these types here, or mechanical version, sorry, not mechanical, installed in my workshop. So all my servers, all my computers, all my equipment runs through that. What this allows my parents to do is that they can look at the meter for the house, and then look at how much power has been consumed by these meters, and with very simple math, you can find out, okay, you only owe me this much for this payment period. It's great. But what if electricity is more expensive to produce? Say you're on a diesel generator, or you're in a country where the cost of electricity is just that much higher than it is here in British Columbia. In that situation there, it may be more advisable that what you do is that you ask for the payment in advance. That's where things can get dicey. I've asked my local electrical authority, which is BC Hydro, have you ever had to do prepayment on electricity, ever, in like a commercial or residential operation? And they've stated, we've never had to do that. And it kind of holds water, because I can't find any like kilowatt hour meters that were coin pay or some sort of prepayment device like a parking meter that allowed you to pay for your electricity before you used it and then just turn the power off when you ran out of money. With meters like this here, quite simply, you missed a payment, they just take the meter off the wall and now you have to pay it back. But in other countries, we're going to go into Africa, Southeast Asia, and the United Kingdom, it seems that electricity is just that much more expensive, or either landlords are that much more sleazy, or the tenants are just that much more untrustable to pay the bill on time, that prepayment of electricity is that much more common. So much so that for this video, I had to import 2 kilowatt hour meters. They're amazing, they're ridiculous at the same time. This is a Smith's prepayment kilowatt hour meter. It's very interesting, this unit here, because I bought 2 of these. These were very cheap. These came down to about like $35 Canadian each. To ship these here, that's where things get fun. Normally you expect eBay's global shipping program to be absolutely terrible. There are countless videos online that say that like it's unreliable, your mail goes missing, they'll damage your shipment. But there's also times where with heavy equipment such as this, global shipping program's that much more cheaper, and if it gets lost, okay, well it's not that rare, it's not that valuable. We'll get to that in a moment. So I ordered both of these, different buyers, both went through the global shipping program, both basically shipped almost within a day or two of each other, both arrived within a day or two of each other. The packing quality of both meters was amazing. It was polar opposites. One was just kind of wrapped up beautifully, like entombed in bubble wrap. It was great. The other one was just thrown in a box and shipped. And I'm holding this one in my hand. Both made it and both survived. Now, because I have 2 of them, that allows me to practically set one up for demonstration to use, and the other one here we can just kind of pull apart to bits because whatever. And it's even still got security seals hidden on it right here, so I can cut those open, whatever. So this portion right here is the exact same thing as the kilowatt hour meter here, and we can start by taking this off, which doesn't have a security seal. And there's our 4 terminals. So our line comes in here, our load comes out here. The same thing over here where it doesn't actually have like a proper box to terminate in your wiring. It just kind of gets shonked into the bottom here. I've gone with a junction box here and just made it so that I was able to run proper wiring that's a little bit more safe and a bit more secured. It's not to code, whatever. We're dealing with extraordinary times here. This is secured by a seal to make sure that no one can jump over and bypass it, because that's a thing. Newer electronic versions of prepayment meters can actually detect if that's been jumpered over. That's kind of cool. There's another security seal that's usually hiding right here. This holds in place the coin box. There's also a padlock right here which also secures the coin box. But we have neither, so I'm going to pull that out. Nondescript metal box. It's interesting, both of these meters have been painted with this blue paint, and underneath of it, it's black plastic, phenolic. It could even be Bakelite. It's really neat. I'm sure at the same time this is lead paint or something like that, which is kind of, I'll have to clean this all up later. This particular unit has been tuned, however, for 50p coins. This is how you insert coins into the unit here. You have the single dial, you have a giant rotary knob, And all of that is locked in place with the set screw right here, which the seal goes through. So if I take that off, the whole lock ring then comes off. And I can put that off to the side there. And this assembly here can then be lifted out. But before I do that, two things to note. One, we have this little plunger that's hiding right here. And this is here for the rate control. We have a little A that sits up above here. It says set for rate A. There's a screw hiding right there. I don't know if you can see this, but I'm going to turn this screw here, and that switches it over to rate B. This pin here just makes sure that I'm set on a rate and not sitting somewhere in between. Otherwise, it leaves the whole metering section over here free floating and not actually metering. There is a single gear that connects the kilowatt hour meter to all of this. This here also has a large high current electrical contact. This one here states 40 amps maximum. The way this works also is that there is a pin that hides right here. This one here is fixed, but all the way around the coin acceptor here, you have rate A and rate B marked by numbers, and this pin is used to key exactly where the coin acceptor is actually sitting for that rate. Because when you put a coin in and you turn this dial, it's actually advancing a gear underneath, and that's what's advancing this counter over here. With the lock ring out, I can actually remove this, and we can see that the coin acceptor is very simple. Simply, a coin enters into the path, which is, where is it? The coin enters into the path, which is currently upside down. There we go. I have to grab it from the right spot. Coin enters in, and it pushes on this here. And that just simply makes sure that the thickness of the coin is correct via the slot. The size of the coin is also correct by the height, because when it gets pushed in, it pushes a spring-loaded lever down, which extends this and also retracts this little arm right here. What this then means is that you have two gears in here. The first one right here, you see the counter right here which says the number of coins that have been registered into the unit. If I advance this, it's currently at 599. Now it's at 600. So that's how it knows how many coins are being put in when you read the meter. The giant gear that's at the bottom here, when I turn that counterclockwise, and it does require two hands here to do it, we may hear a click as it goes off of 0. There we go. That click indicates that the 40 amp contactor inside of the meter has closed, and now electricity is allowed to freely flow from the line through the load. It's running through the meter. The meter is now counting back down the credits that have been currently added in. The rate gauge, by the way, has the A rate and the B rate, which again, you can identify which one is which. The B rate is a red letter B. The A rate is all in black. So rate A is from 0 to 20 kilowatts. Rate B is from 0 to 80 kilowatts. This is not an adjustable tariff. It's just fixed one way or the other, but it gives a large range of how much coinage you can put in and just how much electricity it pays for. But eventually, so this will wind down after some time, and eventually you hit back to 0, and you'll hear this. You might be able to hear this actually. There was another thunk. That's as the contactor opened back up again, power gets turned off, the meter stops operating, and anything that's downstream on the load just gets turned off as well. So, because again, I don't care about breaking the security seal on this, if you live in a place where there is a security seal, please don't mess with those. I can go with a pair of wire cutters. There we go. And now we can actually look inside the meter as well. So I'll take both of these off. It looks like there used to be one on here, but it's been broken, whatever. I think that's our only Global Shipping Program damage. No, it's painted blue as well, so that's been broken as well. So we'll take that off, put that off to the side, and then I can take the cover off the meter. This is plastic, so is this. And this is all there is inside. And take a look at that. June 1988. That was the last time this thing was either manufactured or certified for use. So they were using these into the late 1980s. For context here, modern electronic ones use either magnetic stripe cards, smart cards, or little electronic keys, which you have to go and top up on credits. I've heard even more modern units, you just simply are receiving a code, which is the serial number of the meter, and you're just paying for it by credit over phone, and then by a cellular connection or something, it adds credits to it. I have no idea how that works. I think this is considerably more cooler. So I do believe I can separate the two halves of this meter. If I can, sort of, maybe? Let's see about this. What I would like to do is show you the contactor underneath. And also the fact that while this looks like one large assembly, that one gear which links the kilowatt hour meter over to the rest of this, there's no, like, the meshing on that is straightforward. There we go. Come on. Oh, and there goes that. Off that goes. And I will take the 2 screws off the terminal for our wire. And I believe this should just come right out somehow. Oh, no, there we go. It's stuck on that gear. There. So this is the actual metering side of the unit. It is just a giant monstrosity of gears, and you have one electronic contact on the back side here, which then allows for these contacts to open or close. Let me see if I can I turn this with my hand? Can we see the connector, the contactor close? There we go. So when you're first turning that initial turn there, what it's doing is it's also loading up the spring here, which is then used to quickly open this up. Because when it's counting down, the power of the single gear, which is right here, isn't enough to cause overcome the forces of that spring. So I'll wind this down. Can I wind this down? Ooh, hey. Man, there's so many moving parts in this thing that I just can't really comprehend how the heck they've managed to figure that out. It's one of the things I like about geared devices. They're really that complicated. Check out the planetary gear right there. Oh, I just opened the contacts. I went too far. Okay, we'll snap it closed again. So there's our meter. So we're currently at 5 kilowatt hours, 600 coins registered. So I'll wind that down. And let's see what happens to the contactor when I hit 0. Come on, where is it? There we go. And that's it. And it's got a little tiny catch here, so I can't over push that. It's open and that's as far as it'll go. All right. This is the transmission assembly I was talking about here. When I switch the rate, you'll notice the whole thing just kind of swings in and out of the way. That's pretty neat. And, well, that's pretty much it. You could just kind of have this mechanism off on its own, doing its own thing, and there you go. Heck, if you wanted to, you could have an electric motor on it or something like that. The kilowatt hour meter, instead of me taking this apart here, I think I can take this one here apart, and I can kind of give you a little bit of a show and tell. So here's our wires that are running down diagonally, and they're running over to here. And I'll see if I can split this meter in half somehow. I'm not sure how I'm going to do this. Oh, I see. Thumb screw, and that just comes right off. So this is the main gearing assembly that runs that. As you can see, this is now free spinning. And I'm just turning that there. The way these kilowatt hour meters work, let me try and simplify here. without me knowing too much about the knowledge of electricity myself. So we have two windings that are in this meter. One is called the field voltage winding, and that's just simply comes from line, goes to load, or it comes from line and then goes to neutral. That's all it does. And it's just a voltage that's applied across it. It's not a lot of power, but that's the only power it consumes. The other one is the main 40 amp winding, which goes around the other side. And the idea is that I'm going to be totally wrong here. Alterations in just like in the alternating frequency, or no, in the alternating voltage causes this metal disc here to slowly spin. I know I've gotten that completely wrong. Just watch another YouTube video on how kilowatt-hour meters work. The point I'm getting to here is this worm screw right here turns oh so slowly. On the back side of our metering device, we have this gear here, and it turns this oh so slowly. And there's a ton of reduction gears that go across to every single needle and dial on here. And from there, this one gear that's hiding over here is the one that links up with the prepayment metering side of the meter. That's why I said you could take this whole side of the meter and just leave this alone here. And I mean, well, you have to bridge that obviously, but this here is its own kilowatt-hour meter. You could just completely ignore that. So my guess is that this package right here was available standalone if you didn't want prepayment. And I've seen versions of like this in Japan or something like that. Which also brings up something also interesting about this. And again, reinforcing my lack of knowledge here. This here is designed for 220 volts, 230 volt, 50 hertz electricity. Here in North America, pretty much all of our consumer electronics, this kilowatt-hour meter, for example, runs on 120 volts to like 110 volts at 60 hertz. So it's a lower voltage at a higher line frequency. When I got this, I was fully expecting that if I gave this 120 volts, it would be too slow. It would just be absolutely glacial regardless of the loads I put onto it. As it turns out, I was wrong. It's actually a little slow now. I'll try and demonstrate this in a bit. So we have now gone and I have hacked this thing completely to bits. I'm going to take a couple minutes here to put this back together, and I'm going to demonstrate to you my other prepayment meter. You know, as I'm putting this back together here, I'm realizing I've missed out on a whole bunch of other little adjustments and bits and pieces on here, because there's a ton of adjustments. You got here, you have one that's hiding down in here. It's a positive and a negative and a set screw. I don't want to mess with that. And of course, I have this one here. It's just said, turn it one way for S, one way for the other way for F. Slower and faster? I do not know. If there's someone who's watching this who could actually better explain to me what some of these adjustments do, leave something down in the comments. Absolutely go for it. Another one I've noticed, however, is this metal tab that's right here. If I slightly bend that back, I can then also wind back the coin counter on this as well. Or I can advance it. It's just simply a little catch to make sure the coins can only advance and it can't go backwards if this has been removed. If you have this completely open like that, go crazy. But I think at that point there, you've tampered either hard enough with this here, your landlord's going to kill you, or you own it, whatever, just zero it out. You can probably do the same thing with this one here. There's a button right there. If I push that down, I do believe I can then, yeah. If I push down on this button here, I can use that to adjust the meter here, and I can reset it if I so desired. So I've put the meter back together, and as you can see now, I have the other meter set up over here. This is the one that I'm going to be using for demonstrations, and it's all pretty, it's wired in, it's still got this like wire jankiness here because I'm basically trying to bridge two sides of the ponds in terms of electrical standards. I've put the kilowatt-hour meter in right here. This one here, you can actually see I've scraped the paint away so you can see the instructions on how to use the bloody thing. And also, it says at the bottom, automatic device prevents too many coins being inserted at one time. which means that you can max out this meter here, and then it's going to lock itself out, and it won't actually let you add any more money in. There's two other interesting things with this particular meter here. The first is that it's been modified, or it's been set up for the £1 coin. So not the 50p coin. The coin acceptor, though, looks pretty much the same. The other is that this has been in use very, very recently. There's a sticker on here, 1 phase, 2 wire, 50 hertz pulse at 0 kilowatt hours per revs, blah, 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 blah. Tested and certified by Westwood Meters and Timers Limited, electronicmeters.co.uk. That company is actually still around. They won't, they can't sell refurbished ones because it looks like they're running out of parts. But information on these, they still have these. Which leads me to believe these meters here, even though like this style is decades old, that other one was from the 80s, these are still in service. Okay, you can't reinvent the wheel. The mechanical ones have proven to be pretty darn good, and they have tried to make people honest when they use them. Remember how I said before that the coin acceptor here will only accept coins that it can see as the proper size? What happens if, for example, you use a washer? Shame on you, first off. Well, let's put the washer in there. It fits in, and I'm going to turn the dial. Well, I was able to advance the dial. The coin here went up by 1, and I heard it go clunk into the coin tray. But it didn't actually add any time onto the meter. The reason for that is that I think the idea here is if you try and do something stupid like this, and then it just gets dropped into the locked coin box, well, you have nothing to do but wallow in your sorrows, because your landlord's going to rip you apart when he sees that he opens the coin box and finds a couple of washers in there, because he'll know exactly what you tried to do. You can't blame it on the kids all the time. What's interesting, however, is that I don't have £1 coins. Instead, however, I have Canadian quarters. So with very little modification to this, I think it just simply came down to just bending a tab here. If I put a Canadian quarter in, I currently have this set for like 4.5 kilowatt hours. So we'll put that in and watch the meter. And at the same time, this space heater is now turned on. How much power am I consuming? Right now it says it's only about 12 watts, which is the electric motor. Here, let's turn it up and hope I don't pop the breaker for the room. So I'll turn on the heat. It's 400 watts. Turn it up even higher. It's 800 watts. Go even higher than that, we're going to break 1,000. And you just saw over there, that's spinning right now. That's actually spinning relatively good. So I'll turn this down before I pop my breaker. So I did the rough math, and right now, as it stands, it's slow. So for 1 kilowatt of electricity that I use, this here is recording 900 watt hours of electricity actually consumed. That's not bad. Like, this is not the kind of thing I would say that you are legally allowed to use in North America. It's not provided by the electric company. And if you do use this for billing purposes, someone's going to challenge you saying, well, this isn't going to be designed for this country. It's going to be inaccurate. But I really like these. I mean, the idea here is, yes, sure, they go into places where you're not honest or you may not be paying in full. But unlike with our electric companies where they'll just take the meter off the wall and you can't get electricity until you pay back your dues, this will be installed. They will give you a considerably higher rate than you were already, but you still get electricity. And then once you pay off your back dues, or your back pay, or your back taxes, or whatever, they can come back in and set you back to your regular rate. Or they may just put the other meter back in altogether. This is the kind of thing I like for EV chargers even. I don't like using online-based account registration services or credit services. This here, quite literally, I can take a coin out of my pocket, put it in, turn the dial, and now, for whatever amount of money I put into there, it's going to charge my vehicle up to how much money I've put into the meter. Quite literally, like a parking meter. So this here is prepayment kilowatt hour electricity meters. This unit here and this unit here had to be imported from the United Kingdom just so I could do this video. They were cheap. As it turns out, they're moderately accurate. I like these a lot. I'm going to try and find a use for them. Even if this is like a gag joke, like, sure, I'll let you use the space heater under your desk, but it'll cost ya. Like, it's good. And as a demonstration device, in 120 volt countries, not a problem at all. I know there's people out there who are actually using these in their houses right now. I would like to hear from you down in the comments. If I've made any mistakes, please point out down below. If you have any memory of these, please put them down below. How well are they maintained? Like, how reliable are they? How often were you finding stuff like washers hiding inside the coin acceptor? I'd really like to know. I really hope you enjoyed watching this. I hope this was also educational to you, because you probably had this box on the wall and you were always like, gee, I wonder what's going on inside. And there you have it. And that's the end of this video. And until next time, have a good one.